was in Utah until late last night, and it only got into it, so I'm running about 45 minutes behind my whole life. I'll catch up with it maybe tonight. Let me say that everything has been said, but not everybody has said it. So all I can do is reiterate or reinforce what has been said, especially in Mr. Chowdhury's comment about the role of the local Pakistan-American community. And he himself has been a role model in a sense. I've met more Pakistani politicians in America in his basement than probably any other place. It's just been a great asset to those of us who study Pakistan professionally by introducing us to a whole range of officials, not one particular party or another, but all across the spectrum. And it's really been a great pleasure. It's really an asset for those of us who try to think about Pakistan professionally. Let me begin by telling you a story of, just one story, I won't tell very many, conversation I had with then General Musharraf. Right after the coup, I was in Pakistan a week or two afterwards, and I had a long session with him. And because I'd written a book on the Pakistan Army, he knew me a little bit, and I think I may have met him much earlier. And we had a long conversation, a very enlightened and interesting conversation. And on Kashmir, for example, he went much further than anybody in Pakistan had ever gone publicly. Then he said he actually was talking about accommodation, negotiation, or an arrangement which in fact he did propose to the Indians much later. But he was brought back by one of his advisors, you know what policy, sir, is plebiscite accession, and accession, that's a policy. And he backed off and then told the official line, but I think he was trying to think of ways out of it. Anyway, I had a conversation with him, and I said, you know, General Musharraf, didn't realize he'd soon be President Musharraf also. I said, you know, the best thing you could do for Pakistan would be to simply turn the country back over to the politicians, as bad, as good as they might be, have fresh elections, let the people of Pakistan decide who their leadership will be. And he said, looked at me and said, I was crazy. He said, no, we're going to fix these Johnnies once and for all. And I thought, he's in real trouble. Actually, I told him in trouble, because this is replicating what Ayub Khan did. And even Yahya, in a sense, tried to get out of it, and let alone see it was another kind of problem completely. And I think that he vastly underestimated the Army's ability to transform the state. And he vastly overestimated the problems that Pakistan had. And I think that was the tragedy of his rule. He was a well-intentioned person, I think, and a very pleasant man also. No problems with it in that regard. But I think he simply was not a strategist, not a politician. And he had contempt for the same contempt for politicians that the other officers have. And I said, you know, what you need to do is have elections, let Pakistanis elect a new generation of leaders, and if they're bad, let them throw them out again. In a sense, that's how democracies get better, through elections. And elections don't make democracies, but democracies make elections. And you'll have an imperfect democracy at first, but the election process can perfect that, bring new people into politics. And he wasn't interested in that at all. So I knew then, and this is 1998, I knew then that Pakistan was going to be in trouble. I didn't realize how serious the problems would be in the successive years. And when I finished my book called The Idea of Pakistan, the last sentence, which took me a week to write, said something like, you know, if things continue in Pakistan by the middle of the decade, which is 2 years from then, would be the most important country as far as America is concerned. Would dominate American foreign policy, and it has, for all the wrong reasons you can imagine. All the wrong reasons, no good reasons. But let me talk first about some good things that are happening before we get too gloomy. And I think that there are three areas which are important, and all these have been covered, but I'll perhaps approach it in a different way. First of all, I think that the attempts at governance by Pakistan government, including the military, but largely civilian, has probably been better than anything they've had in the past. It's an incompetent government. It's failing, but it's better. And to me, better is what you live for. You know, it's not. Be sure to turn off your cell phones when you turn on your cell phones when you do it. That's how it so I think that it's incompetent in many ways. There's an air gap between the government and the people, but still it's performing better, doing more things than any other Pakistani government living memory has attempted. In this sense, it's true to the spirit of Benazir, although without Benazir, it doesn't have the kind of charisma and effectiveness that might have otherwise. So I think that the performance of the Pakistan government, while it's clearly not great, part because the problem seems so great is in my mind, acceptable. Secondly, and then the military part of this, the military kept on and not tried to do too much, at least overnight. Second, as about Hathaway said, I think America understands how critically important Pakistan is. Not simply because of the nuclear weapons, although they do attract everybody's attention, but because Pakistan has become, I won't use the term epicenter, but it's become a center from which Islamic extremists have based themselves and moved out elsewhere. Of all the countries in the world, the British are perhaps even more concerned than we are, because something like 50–60% of all terrorist incidents in Great Britain can be traced one way or another back to Pakistan. And I was down in CENTCOM the other day, and Petraeus' deputy, probably will succeed Petraeus, gave an address, and he said all this. He said, well, if the Times Square bombing had succeeded, we wouldn't be here, which leads to unimaginable thoughts about what we would be doing vis-a-vis Pakistan if the bombing had killed 100 or 200 Americans. That's something to think about. And there will be other such attacks. So I think that the U.S. understands the importance of Pakistan. I think it was unfortunate that it was driven because of an interest in Afghanistan. But Biden in particular understands the importance of Pakistan in itself, for the United States. And therefore you have the Biden-Lugar and Kerry-Lugar bill. Thirdly, and I think that Jonathan alluded to this, and I think he's right, that the Indians have come to an understanding that a failed Pakistan is not in their interest. They want to see a weak Pakistan, but they don't want to see a failed Pakistan. So how do you calibrate the gap between failure and weakness? A weak Pakistan is okay because it's struggling, but a failed Pakistan is a catastrophe for India, for all the reasons you can imagine. Not only nuclear, but also migration and Islamic extremists and so on. So the Indian leadership is now sort of ambivalent about Pakistan. But because of the Mumbai bombing, it's hard for any politician to talk or think about this publicly. I think the Prime Minister of India, Manmohan Singh, is one of those who do. But the Indian public is so scarred and embittered by the Mumbai attack that it's hard to find anybody who would openly talk about normalization of Pakistan. And then on the Pakistani side, who do they have as partners? The Pakistan Army. That's not true. In a sense, the failure for both of them to understand that they've got a shared common interest in maintaining the integrity of Pakistan is a critical fact. And but Indians are at least debating this problem. Now they're balancing this. A lot of problems that they've been discussed already, but I won't talk about it. But let me talk about much. But let me talk about the economy. And the way I see Pakistan's problems is that it's the one country in the world, most fairly advanced country in the world, that most significantly lost out on globalization. We tend to think globalization is a wonderful thing, and it's transformed countries around the world, Malaysia, Singapore, to some degree, India, China, and so on. Everybody's trading with everybody else, everybody's giving and sharing with everybody else. But Pakistan did not have the educational system, did not have the economic system to take advantage of globalization. It was hit by negative globalization. That is, the extremists, the jihadists, used globalization techniques, the internet, to spread extremism in Pakistan. And of course, the wide-body jet, which is the epitome of globalization, we can fly people around the world very cheaply now. The extremists in Pakistan used that to fly elsewhere. And since Pakistan became the trading point, the jumping off place for people destined for the United States, for Europe, and elsewhere. So Pakistan was impacted negatively, very strongly by globalization, more so than I think any other major country. Of course, secondly, sectarian violence and extremism have continued. When I talked to Bashar, he said, the one thing I want to do is end sectarian violence in this country. Well, if you look at sectarian violence when he came in and when he left, there's been no change to that at all. I think he's going to require far more ruthless and effective measures than he was prepared to undertake. And thirdly, another chronic problem, Jonathan and others alluded to this, we still have a military-civil relationship, which is a constitutional aberration. Modern countries don't have their armies running them. Armies are very good at defending their country sometimes not, but they're very bad at running states. And Pakistan is a state that's too complex, too rich, too diverse for an army officer to run. And I remember when I left Pakistan, Islamabad once, went through one of the customs, I saw this army officer sitting there. You all remember the period where